Hi, and welcome to our set of our series of a new idea for Feast for the Soul 2023, which is called Compassion in Action, the Story and the Storyteller. And I'm taking this opportunity during this Feast for the Soul to meet again with people who have inspired me over the recent months and years with their work, their compassionate work, to share that and to meet people who are quietly going about their purpose, their business, and hoping that it will trigger an interest in people who may not actually ourselves have met this type of work. So to begin, I'd like to welcome John Oliver. And John and I met in October last year when we attended a conference together. In fact, John, you were the first person I met as we got out of the car in the dark and got talking. And the rest followed throughout the period of the 4 days. And it concluded with you giving me the most beautiful gift, which was the opportunity to sit in front of you, in front of a camera, in a quiet room, and to meditate together. And then from that meditation, when I was ready, when I felt the desire to open my eyes, to be able to share with you and the camera very quietly what was emerging from very deep within my soul. And I do remember that I had no knowledge of what actually was said within that period until you sent me the completed edit, which I will be posting and probably have already posted in Feast for the Soul. So John, would you be kind enough to share who you are, what your passion and purpose is, and the compassionate work that you do with our audience today? Over to you.
Well, thank you, Sue. And this is a good opportunity to practice my hearing myself saying I am an artist. This has been a 3-year pivot, but I'm introducing myself now with, yes, the video witnessing, video portrait work, which started after being very inspired to acknowledge the origin. It's Nick Askew, who has a website called Soul Biographies. And so that has been a key practice for me over the last 3 years. And alongside, I've been launching quite a few art projects across a whole range of media, sculpture and portrait painting and other abstract works. And my background actually is in narratives. So there is a connection. 13 years ago, I started a brand of consulting in organizational development. And from the beginning, we were working with narratives and storytelling. And so it's been fun for me just to sort of see how that thread over all of these years and in different sort of methods working with storytelling. And the niche, this sort of one part of the spectrum of using the camera, and then in particular working with paradox of the less expectations, the less I do behind the camera, in sort of almost magic reliability, there is some spontaneous narrative that emerges from the person who's in front of the camera. And so, yeah, that's my background actually is in multinationals and in technology, but I've been shifting step by step to work with, so I've done some training in developmental psychology, which is part of my organizational consulting work, and facilitation and working with large scale text narratives for large organizations, to now, yes, this very sort of more personal, individual process with video. And there's a link, there's a lot of sort of cross-fertilization with my artwork. But yeah, that's what's alive right now.
Thank you. And what is it? That little word "it" is so huge, isn't it? What is it that inspires you to quietly sit behind a camera and enable people to create, or a narrative is created from that deep within, we call the soul? What is it that as I see, maybe the purpose? What is the purpose that has drawn you into this work?
Yes, I've been so inspired by what we might relate to, and obviously your community is so close to the exploration of different levels of consciousness. And so I immediately locked on to seeing this not only sort of total pivot of who I was, how I was showing up in the world, supposedly as an expert in my field and wanting to have a presence for my client work, or presence to kind of project who I am out into the world, and completely challenge that to, and it was almost like a midlife crisis. How can I explore my own ego? What happens when I become nobody, let's say, behind the camera, doing nothing, and the less I do, the better? That kind of vulnerability seemed this wonderful challenge that not only sort of forced me to drop into my own embodied consciousness, having lived all of my adult life in my head, and sharing that. So for me to practice dropping in silence into my own embodied sense of the moment, and not have that necessarily just as a first person meditative practice where I'm on my own, but actually this second person domain of consciousness. What happens if with another person I'm becoming, let's say, nobody, and not asking any questions, there's no expectations, and then this sort of magic happens that the person in front of me feels through the silence. We do a meditation together, and then I'm in open eye, witnessing behind the camera, not asking any questions. And it's a sort of a joint exploration of different layers and levels of consciousness, and capturing what arises. And the other sort of piece of the magic is, as you mentioned, you sort of walk away thinking, okay, I may have said a few things, and I did actually say something. I have filmed people where they've said nothing for 45 minutes, and I've still done an edit on 45 minutes of silence with the shifts of energy that you're picking up. All of that non-verbal is incredibly rich as well. But I typically walk away saying, oh, yes, so there were some interesting moments there. I'll look at the footage. But I typically work with the footage for about a week. And I'm listening to moments of the video, maybe 10, 12, 15 times, and I'm hearing something new every time. And it's so interesting. I say, well, I was there. I was listening to what Sue was saying, yet I'm hearing something new yet again in playing this back. And so that's been a whole new sort of domain that I've discovered, is my own consciousness in connecting to the content and then adding value to that content, because we can go back to it and realize what was said in that moment. So yes, this theme of consciousness is very much how I'm making sense, but there are some other elements. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yes, I concur with everything you're saying here. Being on the other side of the camera, what I'm fascinated by, and have been for a long time, is this creating a space for this to emerge, for this soul guidance to emerge. And the work that I've been doing for years, and with we're continuing with Feast for the Soul this last year and this year, is this co-creating compassionate communities. And part of that, a big part of that obviously, is creating a safe space. I then think that once we've created a safe space, we create a brave space, enabling the voice to come through from deep within. And then from that, an intentional space. I think I mentioned this on the video. It's why am I here? The questions that we ask ourselves: what's my purpose? How can I serve? So it's the question to you really is this creation of a compassionate space. This is what I call compassion in action, that you have created, and kind of what brought you into that bubble, that bubble of compassion from your perspective, your own personal perspective.
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. And it's a great opportunity for me to take a bit of a step back. And there are quite a few threads, even going back 15, 20 years of listening to things like Desert Island Discs and being just absolutely mesmerized by how, how powerful people, those moments of taking a step back and speaking from the whole embodied sense, and music with Desert Island Discs is wonderful. It's a sort of wonderful vector through music to express an emotion. And I think with what I saw with the video work and the practice of silent witnessing, is how we're speaking from a lower level of consciousness, and the camera kind of is very faithful. The camera can represent the fact that the energy of that transmission is coming from a different place than if somebody had been asked a question and the person in front of the camera knows what they're going to say. Just to answer your question, just trying to come back to your question. So I know I've come across so many references, even, for example, there's one exercise with David Data of subtle energy witnessing, having people stand in front of you, them not saying anything, and having something of a sort of a panel of observers and spotting moment to moment how the energy is shifting in those people. That was a workshop with Ken Wilber. And then, yes, the quotes, I mean, there are quite a few of Carl Rogers, I think, who said, actually, no, sorry, Carl Rogers says that the most personal is also the most universal. And I could see that inspiration of daring to be in an intimate space with somebody taps into universal emotions and experiences, so we connect. And his name has just slipped away, but there's another expression that, yes, we don't necessarily need to be fixed. Having been exposed over the last 20 plus years to a lot of, obviously, personal development and personal exploration and the incredible growth of wisdom traditions in the West, there's a flavor to, in fact, a flip of the coin is that we don't necessarily need to be fixed, but if we could just be heard.
Yes.
And so these have been all the threads that I guess I hope that answers your question, has fed into my seeing how I can bring that all to bear in the video work.
Yes, it's back to the compassionate space. The aim is, for people to be in their own communities, ideally physically, but obviously virtually has a huge impact as well. And it's the inner work that we each do, isn't it? The inner work that you've done enables you to become a deeper listener and be more present. So we work on ourselves first. We what we call self-care. Take a little bit of time out to be able to witness the subtle energies. That's what I think we're referring to here, isn't it? Energies that are beyond the five senses, that enables us to relax into a space where that intuition, that inner voice is able to express, which is really the depth of our own consciousness. So I think what I'm saying here is that your work has had a real impact on me from a personal level, and I would love it if people who are watching this video just take a few moments out to go to your website, which is interiortruth.com, and take another look, a deeper look at John. And you've got a beautiful video up there of yourself with some wonderful quotes, and have a look as this inspiration, not only for the work that you're doing. It'd be wonderful if people could connect directly with you, if you'd give your email out, or I could share that separately, but to really start now this journey of inner peace, inner wisdom emerging, having the opportunity to find others in their community where they can be deeply heard, deeply listened to, and be able to share their story as well, and then reflect that back. That's my belief is how we grow, how we learn, how we grow, and how we make these beautiful connections like we did over those 4 days, not expecting anything other than what results is a deeper friendship. So John, would you be kind enough just to say a few words, anything that's coming through you at this moment that you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, yes, a kind of connection to art in terms of I feel there's almost a future of art, the aesthetics of our lives, where the narrative arc of who we are, what we've experienced, and I see, yes, each of our individual journeys as a work of art. And so the privilege to be with people and to tap into, it's interesting, as I mentioned, layers of consciousness, but also layers of intergenerational, these sort of almost epigenetics that can emerge as well. Daring to sort of tap into this larger field is hugely exciting and a huge privilege, and I'm so, yes, part of my own arc is to come back to the aesthetics of the beauty of our lives, and that we are all a work of art.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful way to conclude. So people can get in touch with you through your website, interiortruth.com. Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
Well,
And yeah.
and thank you so much for joining me today and being able to share your story, your journey, and inspire us to become listeners and to join together in this compassionate space, hopefully in our own communities as well. So thank you, John.
Thank you, Sue. Thanks so much.